from Helen at Byron Bay. She wants to know, how do you know your horse has recovered from that virus?
Well, if the horse has Hendra virus, I think the death rate is about 75%. So it's a really high case fatality rate for that. It's recovered if it's back to being clinically normal. But as I say, the horse will still carry antibodies, and there's still we believe, a chance that animal will then potentially get Hendra virus again. That it probably rests somewhere maybe in the nervous system of the animal and can then cause death at a later stage. But the recovery rate is very low, and as I say, it's policy nationally that even if a horse recovers, if they've had Hendra virus, then they get euthanized.
And a vet would obviously be looking after that animal that would be so sick that the vet would know.
Yes. The cases this year, I think all the cases died within 2 days, most of them within a day. So it is a very fast-acting and quite a nasty disease.
Well, this may answer that question that I'm about to ask here, but Marie from the Gold Coast, she wishes to continue with Pony Club for her daughter, but while the Hendra virus is around, she's a bit frightened about doing that. Her question is, how do you know that the other horses there at the Pony Club event don't have Hendra, and why aren't there movement restrictions from the times when Hendra is rampant?
That is a good question, because I mean, people obviously want to feel safe when they take their animals to Pony Club. Of the 9 cases this year in Queensland, and the 8 cases, the incidents around Hendra virus in New South Wales, all the cases have been related to contact with flying foxes. There's been no spread from property to property. So Hendra virus is not a highly contagious disease, and so we don't put movement restrictions on in an area because of Hendra virus. What we do though is we quarantine properties where we know there's Hendra virus or where we suspect there's Hendra virus. And there's been no properties that we've been involved in from Biosecurity Queensland that have later then spread the disease. And so that simple act is quite effective in actually containing the disease within that property. The issue for pony clubs, I think, is twofold. It's about you don't know the status of the other horses within that pony club or that event. And so one of the key parts of that is for event organisers not to allow sick horses into the event. Now, that sounds fairly obvious, but I think there needs to be a clear policy that's the case. They don't do that. With Hendra virus, we know, however, that some animals can excrete the virus before they show clinical signs. That is when they appear clinically normal. And this is the concern, I think, for people with pony clubs and for other events. And so it's very hard to guard against that. But what we do advise is that people holding events take precautions and have plans in place. So the sorts of precautions we advise are that things like that you have a vet on standby, that you can quickly get a vet if a horse becomes sick, that you have an area where you can put a sick horse that's separate from other horses, that you maintain separation where you can between horses, that you don't share equipment between two horses. That is, if a horse then turns out later to have Hendra virus, you're not increasing the risk of transmission between horses. And we advise that anyone holding an event puts a risk management plan in place. They ask the question, what happens if I get Hendra virus, and have some planning in place for that. Now, we provide quite a bit of information on our website, and we're also really quite happy to work with organisers and if they've got any questions about how they best do that. But it's about the planning, and it's about behaviour of people at that event, and things like making sure that you actually wash your hands between horses, that you don't get up and close in contact with other people's horses, because you don't know what they're going to be like. So it is a precautionary approach. We can't guarantee that any horse doesn't have Hendra virus at that time, but there are sensible precautions you can do that reduce the risk.
Sharon, if I could add to that, people became very aware of how contagious equine influenza was back in, was it 2007, I think, and were very good in trying to maintain quarantines, movement controls, etc. And of course there was a whole statewide situation. Hendra virus is not equine influenza. It is not a highly infectious disease. It's a highly fatal disease, and people often get the two confused. It's not highly infectious. It doesn't float on the breeze. It won't blow from one paddock to another paddock. And in fact, even on an infected premises, you need close and direct contact with heavy nasal secretions or other body fluids with a case horse for transmission to occur to a second horse. And even then, it doesn't always happen. So I think that's the first thing. It's not a highly infectious thing. It's not going to run rampant through the pony club. Another point is that it's true that we know from experimental studies now that horses that are experimentally infected at least can excrete small amounts of virus in nasal and oral secretions for 24 or 48 hours before they show any clinical signs. But these are very small amounts of virus, and the amount of virus increases with the onset of clinical disease. So a horse that is excreting tiny amounts of virus before it becomes ill in reality poses a low risk of transmission to another horse. And if we adopt the kinds of things that Rick has said, then we can manage that. Once the horse is clinically ill and as it approaches its terminal stage of illness, that's when the maximum risk is with virus transmission to other horses and to people.
Well, just on that topic, there's a very quick question here from Belinda from Walloon. She says, what is the availability of protective suits for horse owners? Where are they available? And if they are not available, why not?
I don't know whether Michael wants to talk about the protection, but you don't need protective suits per se to do that. If you cover any cuts that you have when you're dealing with a horse, if you have a long sleeve shirt, if you have jeans and you have pants, and wear gloves and take normal hygienic precautions, that's fine. If your horse is sick, it's a different thing. You actually you call your vet and you minimise contact with the horse. If you have to have contact, you have minimum contact, you wear gloves, advised to wear a face mask and goggles, and then wash your hands when you finish. So from day to day, I think dealing with a horse, you just take normal hygienic precautions. And if your horse is sick, you call a vet and minimise your contact. And don't kiss your horse.
Please don't.
I guess just to follow on, one of the things that's been mentioned is this concept of amplification that occurs when the horse gets sick, and I think that's a really important concept to have an understanding of, because it's the large amount of respiratory secretions or secretions from the mucous membranes in the nose and the mouth that really provide the opportunity for the infection to occur. And so minimising the amount of exposure to those secretions, using the simple things that have been mentioned, the mask, the goggles, the gloves, and covering up any wounds or any scratches if you're dealing with a sick horse is very, very important. And as Rick's indicated, it's very important to contact your local vet when you're dealing with those circumstances. But it is very hard to become unwell when you're exposed to this virus. It's not a highly contagious virus. As we've said, in a normal hot day, it probably survives at best 15 minutes. And provided you take all the right precautions, the risks that are associated with caring for horses is relatively low. Having said that, if you do get infected, it is a very serious illness and one that we don't have any active treatments for.
So you certainly don't need a protective suit in the everyday interaction with your horses. It's only if your horse gets sick that you'd need to get these protection. Okay. A question maybe for you, Clive. This is from Daniel at Rockham.